If you're after a great car for great roads like these, which to be fair would be even better were it not tanking down with rain, there are a few better options than the Porsche Cayman. And I know now you're sitting there thinking, well, that's all very boring and very predictable, and haven't you ever heard of a car called the Alpine A110? And I have, and it's brilliant. I love the A110. However, the Porsche steers better, it's grippier, but still has a lovely balance. And there are other things to consider too, like the fact that the interior is not made of egg cartons and the infotainment system works. And if you're carrying more than a lunchbox, it'll fit in the boot. I mean, it just does everything. It's pretty much perfect. Isn't that right, kids? Ah, except that bit. Like all two-door sports cars, it's completely useless if you've got kids, because of course you'll have to choose which one you want to take, and that will make you feel heartless. And when you arrive back home, all pleased as punch of yourself with your shiny new purchase, your wife or husband will look at you like you're a complete idiot for buying something so ridiculously impractical and tell you to take it back immediately and buy something sensible. And that puts us right back at square one, because what do you choose if you want fun and 4 seats for 45 grand? Well, we have a solution for you, because we've got the new BMW M240i xDrive. This does have 4 seats and a big boot which you can fill up with stuff, and when you've filled it up with all the stuff it can take, you can drop the rear seats down. It's so practical your partner will think you're a considerate and caring human being. Remember to head over to PistonHeads.com after watching this video to research and buy your next car. But what it also has is more power than a Cayman S, and that's because under the bonnet it has the same 3-litre straight-six turbocharged engine out the M240i, and that means it has 375 horsepower and 369 pounds-foot of torque, which is crazy when you think this isn't even a proper M car, and yet it'll do 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds, which, when you put your foot down, feels more than fast enough. It sounds lovely and straight sixy and silky as well when you're just mooching around like this. The only problem is that, as always with BMWs, they've piped music into the interior through the speakers so that when you put your foot down, it starts to get a bit boomy and a bit resonant. The other thing I'm not 100% happy with is the gearbox. It's the ZF 8-speeder, so in many ways it's very good. However, there are times when it's just not as responsive as you want it to be. For example, I'm in third gear, I'm changing down, and I'm pressing on the paddles, and there's the change. But why can't it come sooner? Because the thing is, it won't change down until the revs in the gear that I'm landing into drop below 6,000. And that's just frustrating because the red line's up at 7, and it means that you're not getting the engine braking you want when you're coming up to the corner. But other than a few little foibles like that, I've got to say it's a really genuinely impressive car, and more than that, it's really enjoyable as well. Yes, I know it's an anvil like 1,765 kilograms, but 200 kilograms of that is actually the four-wheel drive system, and to be fair, on a day like today, that's not a bad thing to have on your side. But most of the time you don't actually feel all that weight when you're driving along. And the good news is it feels like a proper rear-wheel drive BMW, because that's where the power's heading the majority of the time. So it has a lovely balance with a playfulness to it, and it's only when the rear breaks traction that it starts shoving all the power forwards to drag you out of the slide. And the engine isn't the only thing that the M240i shares with the M440i, because, well, it basically is one. So if you thought this was just another car built on the same platform as the 1 Series and the 2 Series Grand Coupe, it isn't. It's basically a 4 Series with just a bit lopped out sort of somewhere here. And this all stacks up to be extremely good news, because if this was the old M240i, I wouldn't even be thinking about it in the same breath as a Cayman, because the old car was, well, how can I put this nicely? A little bit of a challenged car in terms of its body control and the steering, which was generally a bit vague and unconnected. Whereas in this car, the steering is fluid and sweet and accurate. So along country roads like this, you can put the nose exactly where you want it to be, and that means you can start to press on a bit more. It's also composed and resolved so that when there are cambers and bumps chucked in the road, this one doesn't chuck you into a hedge like the old one would have done. Now just look at it over here. So this is the type of road I'm talking about. And over every bump and every crest, it just rises and falls in one simple hit. And that's what you want. And you know what? That's the reason why I'm starting to fall for this M240i in a way that I didn't with the old car, because it just feels like a really nicely sorted product. So, is the M240i as good as a Cayman? Well, no, because it's not as alive and as visceral as that, but that's to be expected. The point we were wondering at the start was, does it provide enough fun as well as the practicality? And the answer to that is a resounding yes, it does. It might not be as pin sharp as a proper two-seat sports car, but it is definitely a properly good performance car. And if you're still not convinced, then that's not the end of it either, because this M240i will be the basis for the next M2, and what an exciting proposition that car will be. We hope you've enjoyed watching this PistonHeads video. If you have, then don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and also let us know what you think of the M240i in the comments below.